Hello and welcome to Let the Stones Speak. My name is Christopher Eames, your host for today's program. I'm coming to you today from the site of Khirbet el-Maqatir, one of the key proposed sites for the biblical conquest city of Ai. This fascinating site has been excavated by the Associates for Biblical Research team over a number of decades, and today I had the privilege to sit down with Abigail Van Huss, formerly Abigail Levitt. She is currently the assistant director for the excavations that are going on at Tel Shiloh, and she has also excavated the site in the past. So it's been a privilege to sit down with her. We hope you enjoy the interview. If you do, please leave us a like, and if you're not already, please subscribe. Abigail, it's a pleasure to be here with you at the site Khirbet el-Maqatir, however you want to pronounce it. We were talking in the car on the way here that this is great for me, but this kills two birds with one stone, because I've always wanted to come to this site and I've wanted to interview you on the program as well. So thanks very much for making the time to do that with us.
This is great. I always enjoy coming back here. It's a little sad to see it all overgrown with weeds, but you know, it is what it is.
For sure. So to begin with, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, some of the places where you've been involved with, excavated, and in particular this site here.
Yeah, so this was the first site I excavated at. Back in 2010 was my first season here. And then I excavated here with the Associates for Biblical Research team. And then when we finished here, we moved to Tel Shiloh, and that's been our main focus. I'm a PhD student at Ariel University, so I'm working on finishing up my PhD there. So I've been involved in a few of their digs, Khirbet Rafid, Khirbet Uja. I dug a little bit with them at Tel Bernal, but haven't really been involved in that project. But yeah, I've just tried to dig at a whole lot of sites.
Right, and very soon you're heading back to Tel Shiloh. I believe you're the assistant director for that site.
Yeah, so we're starting up next week with another season, so it's going to be exciting.
Great. So for this site here, Khirbet el-Maqatir, a lot of our audience will not have a clue about what it is, why they should care about it. It's an unusual named site, but this is one of the key potential sites as the biblical city of Ai.
Yeah.
So when we read about the conquest, the conquest account, Joshua coming and the Israelites coming through, the big three cities are Jericho, Ai, and Hatzor. And we read a lot in the archaeology about Jericho and Hatzor. What is the situation with Ai? Perhaps you could give us a little backstory about why there's so much confusion or debate about what or where Ai is.
Yeah, so we have a pretty good idea based on geographical landmarks where Ai should be. And when the early explorers came through, they found a site. They were like, this is Ai, and it's called Tel, and it's just right over there. It's very close. And so everybody thought, we know where Ai is. That's where it is. But when they excavated there, they didn't find ruins dating to the period of Joshua's conquest. And so that was the problem. And so it started with archaeologist David Livingstone. He was the founder of Associates for Biblical Research, and he went to look for Ai. He was like, if that's not Ai, if it doesn't have ruins from the right time, let's find a site that does. And so he looked in this near vicinity, and he excavated at a site called Khirbet Nisya, which he thought had good potential. Later, Bryant Wood took over as ABR's lead archaeologist, and he excavated right here at Khirbet el-Maqatir because he thought Nisya wasn't Ai. Like, he thought David Livingstone had excavated it and shown that there wasn't enough evidence there. And so he excavated here, and so this dig was ongoing for a long time. I joined it fairly late in the stage, but we're sitting here in the late Bronze Age gate at the site that has a lot of good connections with the Bible, a lot of things that really do seem to match up, that this site could very well be Ai.
Could you tell us where we are?
Yeah.
Right now, at this site of Ai, for any of our listeners who are wondering where in the land we are right now, where are we?
So we are we're in the Central Hill Country, the ridge that runs north-south through the country of Israel. And it's this ridge route is the Patriarch's Highway. We see Abraham traveling up and down it. And so this is one of the main travel routes. And so this site we're north of Jerusalem and south of Shiloh. So we're just off of the ridge route that runs back and forth. So a good location for trade, to be located on that highway.
And that fits also with the biblical account of Ai, I believe, in view of Jerusalem and near to the city of Bethel as well.
Exactly. So. Exactly, because Bethel is one of the nearest cities on that route as well. And yes, we can see Jerusalem, we can see the Mount of Olives. So
okay, so for Tel et Tel as the traditional location, I want to be clear when we talk about fitting with the time period of the Exodus. Like some of our listeners might be familiar with like the early date versus late date, different things like this. I believe you are an early date proponent like myself. We, in taking some of the biblical chronological information literally, 1 Kings 6, Judges 11, 1 Chronicles 6, and so on. This isn't even a question about early versus late date Exodus, right? For Tel et Tel.
No.
This is...
So Tel et Tel has early Bronze Age, which is way too early. And the closest thing it has is an Iron Age 1 village, but that's really too late even for a late date, I think. So there's really just nothing.
Right. And as I understand it, so the destruction of Tel et Tel is like 3rd millennium, early Bronze.
Right.
And then it starts to become repopulated in Iron 1, I believe. But there is no destruction before that.
No,
so
there
isn't. It
isn't.
totally does not fit with the account of people on the scene, no matter which Exodus position you take.
Yeah.
So what are some of the reasons for proposing this site as biblical Ai? Like, are there some key pieces that fit with what we should expect to find here?
Yeah, so one is archaeologically you want to find a fortified site from the right time period, because the Bible specifically mentions a city gate, that this is a fortified city. So it needs to be from the right time period and be destroyed in the right time period. And size-wise, we know that it is smaller than Gibeon. So we're looking, and we archaeologically we know Gibeon, so we're looking for something smaller than that.
And how big is Gibeon, by the way? Do you know?
I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I've been there, like I know just like from being there that it's bigger than this, but I don't know the number.
I seem to recall 9 acres. Okay. In any case, this is another point against Tel et Tel, right?
Which is massive.
Massive, I think 27 acres.
Yeah.
So you're saying we're looking for a small site, as in should be like smaller than 9-10 acres.
Right.
Which
and this one is what, 2-3 acres, somewhere in there. So a much smaller site. Even interestingly, when we read the biblical account of how the Israelites come in, how they set up the ambush, how Joshua stands to the north of the city gate here faces north, and so that makes, I don't know if that's a criteria, but it makes a lot of sense why he's positioning himself in front of the city to the north, is if there's a north-facing gate. There's a deep wadi over this way that would make a really good ambush site. One time a few of our team members went down there and we charged up just to time it and see how long it would take to ambush the city. Yeah. So just topographically, geographically it fits. Archaeologically, we have the fortress, the small fortress, and ash of a destruction from that time. And so a lot of things are really lining up here.
So what is that time? That time for the destruction and some of the remains that were found here, including I think a scarab, a pretty prominent scarab that was found here.
Yeah, so I'm an early dater, as you talked about, and so I would put 1406 or somewhere in there for the Israelite conquest. And so we're looking at something that has late Bronze Age 1 remains. And this site had Middle Bronze Age 3 and Late Bronze Age 1. So that was the period that this fortress was occupied, starting toward the end of the Middle Bronze Age and continuing to the Late Bronze Age 1, and then it's destroyed, and there's nothing after that until finally some Iron Age squatters move in and start building some structures.
Okay. And the scarab, I think, was from Amenhotep II,
yes,
was it?
Yes. So we do have that, and that was from very low in the bottom in a sealed locus, which was quite nice to find something like that. And so depending, again, what scheme you go with, both early date, late date, and then with Egyptian chronologies, which one you choose. But Amenhotep II is a good candidate for the pharaoh of the Exodus, So that matches time-wise that this city was occupied during his reign.
Right, and if you're finding a destruction layer just after that, that
Right.
would fit with that destruction event at the end of the 15th century, around 1400.
Yeah, exactly.
So who has been the chief excavator of this site? Like originally it was Bryant Wood, Dr. Bryant Wood, and then it's gone through one or two other excavators for this site?
Yeah, so it was Bryant Wood, and with his assistant director was Gary Byers. And then toward the end of the excavation, Scott Stripling took over with Gary Byers continuing as the assistant, so we had continuity. And Bryant Wood continued to work with us. He just felt that he needed to retire and take a step back. And so he stayed with the team to the end. But Scott, really his job was to finish up and wrap things up, because we knew we were coming to the end of answering our questions and doing what we could do here. And so Scott directed it for a few more seasons, and then we wrapped up, and then we've been working on final publication.
Okay, and you were also telling me a little bit about how under threat this site is.
Yeah.
Like that you've basically given up on it even remaining preserved. Like as we see, it's so overgrown anyway.
It's overgrown. The locals have been using our squares as trash pits. Even when we were excavating here, we would have night diggers coming in and looting. We would hire the local teenagers to guard the site, and I don't know whether we were hiring them to guard it or to not rob it, but one way or another it worked. And so yeah, there's just been, this is just not a well-protected site. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's encroaching construction. So I don't see this site lasting for too many more years.
Boy, that's really sad. So when was the last time that this was investigated, excavated, shall we say?
December of 2016 was our final season.
Okay. Do you know how many seasons in total that was?
I don't know. So they dug from, it started in I think the late 80s into the 90s, and then because of political unrest, there was a big gap where they couldn't come, and they picked up again in 2009. I think it comes to maybe 20 seasons, somewhere in there. And some of them were summer and winter seasons.
Okay. So to recap the site as it pertains to the time period of Joshua, what we have here is a small site, perhaps why it got overlooked originally.
Right.
Definitely compared to Tel at the size of it. Looking back though retrospectively at the biblical account, we see that that's a good fit though.
Right.
We see a single gate, right, for this site, a single gatehouse, oriented toward the north.
Yeah.
And I believe the biblical terminology is that Joshua stands at the front of the city on the north.
On the north, yeah.
And it's like, well, what is the front? It's where the gate is.
It's where the gate is,
it's
yeah. It has
like,
to
what
be.
is the front of your house? It's where the front door is. So that's a good fit that you have the gate so close to the front. We have a good period of destruction here, dating to the end of the 15th century, and the scarab in particular, fitting with that. Going forward from that time period, you said there's a little bit of Iron Age occupation. There's no immediate reoccupation though,
No,
right?
so it lays
and we wouldn't
abandoned.
expect that from based on the biblical account?
Yeah, so, I mean, we see in the conquest that God promised the Israelites cities that they didn't build. But there were three in particular that you mentioned before, Jericho, Ai, and Hatzor, that the Israelites burned those cities. And so those are the ones that archaeologists look for a destruction layer at, right? But most of the time, the Israelites were supposed to take cities and move into them and live in them, right? And so this being one of the three that they burned, we wouldn't expect them to settle in it right away. Later on, we begin to see a little occupation here, but it's not really until about the 1st century BC that this site again became really inhabited and became a fortified city again. Okay,
yeah, and you were pointing out some of the Roman period remains here. Is it a significant spot at that time, or it's still within that 2-3 acre?
It was still
confine?
pretty small, but interestingly, it seems to have been a fairly rich city. We found like really nice artifacts. It's fortified. In the late 1st century AD, they built a a really big tower, like for that time period, quite massive. And we think it's to defend against the Romans coming. We have hiding systems from that first revolt. So the final end of this site was with the Romans coming and destroying and killing everybody. So that's a tragic end. But we do see, and this site would have been for olive production. We found olive production facilities here. So this was probably a nice, rich little agricultural community.
Okay.
Here.
And finally, to end on, you're about to start your excavations at Tel Shiloh. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What your, if you can, whatever you can divulge, we'll take it.
Yeah.
About what the plan is for this season, if it's going to be a continuation of what you've done in the past there. It's starting very soon, right?
Yes, starting next week. So we're focusing in on 3 main areas right now. One is on the northern wall. So Shiloh has a Bronze Age fortification wall. And so in the northern wall, we found a gap with some external structures, seems to be a tower. We're hoping there's a gate there. So we're focusing in on that area to see what we can find. And then we have our monumental building, which we're really excited about. There's a lot of parallels between that and what we see about the tabernacle at Shiloh. And so I wouldn't go so far as to say that it is the tabernacle, but I would say that it has very good potential.
It's a contender.
Yes, it's a contender for a tabernacle structure at Shiloh. So that's an area that we're really focusing on. We want to get down to where we can get to the floor level and see what's on the floor there. And then our third area that we're focusing on is a cultic favisa, which we think may be related to that building. It was excavated in the 1980s, and we're doing some further excavation to check the dating, try to get a little more precision, get some carbon-14 dates. So,
and just to clarify, what is a favisa?
Okay, so a favisa...
We can tend to take some of these terms for granted in the field.
We do. Sure. So I would describe it as a sacred trash pile. It's discard material from a sacrificial system, so it's full of animal bones, sheep, goats, cows, offerings, broken complete bowls that are broken as offerings, jewelry. We're finding gold in there, which is, exciting to find on any dig anywhere. It's unusual, and the amount of gold we're finding in that area is just percentages way above what I've seen anywhere else. So yeah, all these rich finds coming out of this, where you have stuff that people are offering, and it goes into this deposit that it's been offered to God, so you can't really use it, but you don't want to just throw it away. So yeah, it's this deposit of bones and offerings and all kinds of fun stuff there.
All right. Well, we hope to get out to the site. We'll see if we can this season and do an interview there. But as far as this goes, thank you very much for your time, Abigail. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for trekking all the way out through the weeds to get here.
It's an amazing site, that's for sure. So.